Hey, Terez, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get my headphones connected. There we go.
okay, can you hear me? How are you? I'm hoping it's not just us. So it's a little early, so they still have a few minutes to log on. So we'll see. Oh, I can't hear you now. I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. Is it me? Natasha, can you hear Terez when she's talking?
I can't hear Terez.
Right.
Terez, what if you leave Blue Jeans and come back in?
Terez, I could hear you when you first started. When I first came on and you were talking, I could hear you then. No,
No.
I heard you.
I
Yes.
I just took off the headphones. They were
Oh,
connecting to
okay.
my phone automatically because my phone's too nearby. So I hope the dogs don't bark.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I was hoping that headphones would be just fine. I charged them all night for this, but if they're not gonna pick up, we just had a class yesterday and they worked just fine, but this is too
That's
inconvenient.
it's just the way it always is.
Something. Just something.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so Anastasia is your student helper
Yeah.
so Anastasia, I think I saw you log in, right? You're here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Hi, Anastasia.
Hi,
Therese, meet
so nice to
Anastasia.
see you.
Anastasia,
Hello.
Therese. All right, so I just want to make sure you guys are set up and you're ready to go, and then I'm gonna step away. I might step back in, Therese. I have to get some other things ready for presentations that are starting after yours.
Absolutely.
Um, it is recording, so just remind everyone that they're being recorded when they come in, and then also, if you would, just make sure you end about 5 minutes early, and then that way that whoever has the room next will have like a few minutes to set up and make sure they can check in, audio is working and everything.
Well, Dr. Hudson, I don't think mine's an hour, so I think we have no problem with that.
Okay,
My
okay,
two my two test runs were 30 minutes.
okay. Well, maybe with well, that's
Questions?
okay. If you get some questions and stuff, we're looking at probably about 45, so I think you'll
Mhm.
be just fine.
Great.
All right. Okay, well, I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Thanks, Dr. Hudson.
Hi, Terez. Hey, Anastasia.
Hello, Dr. LA.
Hi. Looks like we got a nice little crowd to start off.
It's exciting.
Who is our room monitor? Is it Anastasia?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make one quick announcement, and if you guys can help me repeat it every time, is just to let everybody know that we are recording all of the sessions, so that we can post them in the advising forum, so they will be available for future review as well.
Very
Okay?
cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So whenever you guys are ready to get started.
Okay. My presentation is probably going to fall a little short. It's
You're
not
gonna
as
be
long as I
fine.
wanted it to be. So, okay, great. Well, I can share my screen, right?
Yes, you share your screen, and the rest of us will come off video while you're presenting, and then when you have any discussion, we can come back on video. Okay? Hi,
Fabulous.
Jonathan. Hey, Jennifer. Nice to see everybody. Yvonne.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing? Madeline. Oh, I'm so excited to see you guys. I wish I could give you all hugs. I'm so excited to see you.
Yay.
Virtual hugs.
Yes, virtual hugs. That's right, Giovanni. Virtual hugs. All right, so we're going to let Terez take over. You're going to be awesome, Terez.
Oh, thank you. I really hope to not disappoint.
You are not going to disappoint. Just be you.
That's good. I'm hoping
Got this.
Love you all. You guys are awesome. Okay, well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my very first national presentation. It's quite, I don't know, scary. Is everybody coming off video, Dr. LA, or is that a thing? I don't know. It's so wonderful to have you guys, to have this opportunity as well to present at the national level and share a topic that I've been quite passionate about for quite some time, compassion fatigue. The presentation that I have prepared for you today is about not only compassion fatigue, but the related subjects and how to handle it. I started my graduate program in 2017 at Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I've been successful through 2 residencies so far, and this is my first presentation. The Chicago School became KCREP accredited this year. It's very exciting. And I just wanted to let you know that my legal name is Dawn Renee Terez Fowler, if you see that pop up, but I prefer to go by Terez Fowler. So why did I write this presentation about compassion fatigue and burnout? I'm so passionate about the subject because it has affected me personally and professionally in my career, and could also affect me and my peers in our future careers as counselors. I think it's best if we kind of look into my past to really understand where I am presently and how this could affect my future. In 2008, I started my undergraduate studies at Oakland University. I was achieving my studies in pre-medical concentration. At that time, I was a single mom, I worked full-time, and I did school full-time. I wasn't sure if I had taken on too much. But with persistence, dedication, sleepless nights, blood, sweat, tears, Wikipedia, and Google, I finally got my degree. My Bachelor of Science was given to me at December 15th, 2012. I learned a lot during my time at Oakland University, met a lot of great people too. However, most of my applicable knowledge came from my upbringing. So I want to go a little further back in letting you guys understand why I am the way I am actually becomes the way I was raised. This slide encompasses all that is me. My grandparents fell in love and moved to America, specifically California, in the 1940s and 1950s. My maternal grandfather is Irish, and my maternal grandmother is Italian. My grandmother's rich Italian family did not want her to marry outside of their culture. In fact, my grandfather found a wealthy Italian for her to marry, but she declined, so they had to run away to be together. Therefore, my well-off grandmother left the comfort of her money, her family, in hopes to fall in love and to maybe achieve the American dream. My rebellious grandmother reminds me of myself a little bit. I see a lot of myself in her. I seek love. I don't care about the repercussions of it. And that's kind of why this poster looks the way it does. So, my grandmother and grandfather got married. They had 7 children. They had 7 miscarriages. My mother is the last one. Her brother's right before her. They didn't know all the rules in America. So they went on a long holiday, a weekend getaway, and we're hoping that the older 5 children would watch my grandmother or my mom and her brother. But instead, each of them kind of left. And the neighbors noticed that 2 small children at 5 and 3 were wandering the house alone. They called the state, and my mother was taken. My mother was put into an adoption home, in a Catholic adoption home. My uncle was never adopted, and they were split. My mom was adopted into a French-Canadian family, but she loved and missed her family a great deal and was always searching for them. My mother's adoptive mother never wanted her, but her father did, and he died just a couple years after she was adopted, but my mom was still very young. Her mother treated her like a maid, and my mom's changed because of that. Later, my mom grew older and fell in love with a German-American cocktail family made up of all kinds of European descent. Later, of course, came me. So by the time I was born, I was listening to my family members speak American, Italian, Irish, French, German, and Latin. To date, I still understand when someone is cursing me out in a multitude of languages. So it does not come to any surprise that in kindergarten, the first person I gravitated towards were somebody who was non-primary English speaking. That's right, my best friend, Van Fenvorath, who preferred to go by Penny. She was the child of a Thailand mother and a Laos father. I was eating with chopsticks by the age of 5. Never even thought that was abnormal. So that's the picture at the upper top left. In fact, that family wouldn't let us eat anything without chopsticks. It's all they had in the house. So I learned to eat spaghetti, M&Ms, everything. I would hear the languages spoken in her home, and I wondered why I wasn't catching on as quickly as I did with all the European languages. In fact, I only learned curse words over the next 15 years of our long-lasting friendship. So crazy. Let's get to the point, right? Well, I promise you there's a reason for all of this. So let's focus now on the 2 brides and the little girl in the middle left. In high school, I met a girl named Genevieve. She had 2 moms. She also had a father and a stepmother, but she lived with Karen and Judy. I spent so much time there. We did all of our studies together. I learned so much from them. They loved me like their own. We were in high school together, and they would go to our conferences hand in hand. My other mothers were the best. They loved me so much and taught me a great deal about owning your different, not really caring so much about what the outside thought of you as long as you were growing on the inside. Thank God for all of my moms, all 3 of them, for teaching me that different is good. I heard this quote. It's a Tetris quote, actually. I'm probably going to mess it up a little bit, but it says something like, if all you strive to do is fit in, you'll disappear. As any of you can see from these pictures, I haven't done anything but fit in. So let's move to that upper right corner. That's a pic of 2 men in love. My best friend did not want his face on here, but this will serve the purpose just fine. My best friend and I met at Oakland University. He's from Kuwait. His mom's from Syria. When I met him, he was dating some of the most beautiful women I have ever seen. However, he barely spoke English. He struggled a lot, and he thrived to become a doctor because that's what his Christian Croatian father wanted. His mother, she wanted it too, but it mattered most about the father's wishes in his culture. After all, Dad was paying cash for medical school. We went to pre-med together, and we really became close. We still are today. He graduated from Michigan State College of Human Services and is a physician today at Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, and is completing a dual residency in internal medicine and pediatrics. After briefly dating a male in Mexico, he decided to let go of all the ideas his family had presented him with. The amount of stress always built, as he knew he wanted to be with a male, but could be persecuted in his country for his sexual orientation. We talked about it. He had to make a tough choice, one that I will never have to do. He had to choose between love and family. With family came all of the good and bad. But the best thing, the thing he didn't want to let go of, is the financial freedom. What do you think he chose? Well, he met a psychology PhD at Oakland University while he was giving a presentation, and he fell in love with Scott. They married this year, September 13th. I couldn't be more happy for him. but he misses his family to date. To date, they also still try to get him to go back to Kuwait. His brother's always trying to trick him because it's not legal to kill him, but they could, and it would save the family name. It's sad, actually. But he chose love, like most of my family. Last but not least, the thing I didn't explain is the lower right-hand corner. These are my sister's twins, my niece and nephew, Keon and Quentin. They also have a little sister, but she's too young to have gone through some of the things that these twins have. These gorgeous babies will be 16 in December. And you know what's so special about them to me? Everything. However, here in Detroit in the suburbs, one would think that discrimination and racial bashing would have all been subsided in the 90s, right? No, not really. I picked them up for school shopping this year and took them to a mall closer to where I live, which is only 11 miles north of Detroit. We were being followed in stores, mistreated, snickered at, as they called me Auntie. It's heartbreaking still. Why is this still happening? You know what's worse than that? Almost nothing. Almost nothing. Except that they sometimes are embarrassed about the white side of our family. They identify as African American only because of their looks. I've been politely asked by Kiana to not show up at her volleyball games or track meets or softball games. That's really heartbreaking. So despite us going to the malls together and hanging out all together, fighting the constant bashing, the constant discrimination that they face, really actually feeling racism on their level broke me. And after 5 hours of shopping and standing up for them, and even though they were hanging their heads low, they were telling me, Auntie, stop, don't do that. But I said, why? Why are you doing this? I went home exhausted and realized I had a whole nother type of compassion fatigue happening inside of me. I dropped off the babies and went home, slept like a baby that night. But I've done it again and again. You see, compassion fatigue isn't this containable thing. It comes in spaces and places you don't even realize. It comes from all kinds of stuff. Sticking up for my gay best friend, even though his country wants to kill him. Sticking up for my moms in the 90s, and that was not exactly, well, legal. Eating with chopsticks, not thinking anything was wrong with me when I was 5 years old. All of these things, they can be beautiful, but they can hurt. And that won't stop me. I'll always continue to stand up for those I love, even when it hurts. So what I need to do is learn how to take care of compassion fatigue when it does set in. I mentioned earlier that I'm a single mom. I work full time, but did I mention my current career? I'm a paramedic in Detroit. Actually, I graduated Baker College in 1999 with my paramedic education because I finished a lot of my courses while I was still in high school. I graduated high school at 17. I'm a paramedic in Detroit. Yeah, one of the only white girls. One of the only girls, actually, back in the 90s. And what's so different about that? I don't know. But it was back in the 90s. The guys didn't want me there. I was one of the first females. The police officers, firefighters, they didn't want my ovaries around. But tough. I was bound and determined to stay. And I have. I worked full-time at MedStar Ambulance, that's on the bottom right, from 1999 to 2005. I got a lot of trauma experience there. They run very heavy 911 area up here, and it definitely shaped me into the person I've been, and I am. The center there is St. John ER. It's the main hospital in Detroit. We get a lot of gunshot wounds, stab wounds, etc., and I worked there for the better part of the 2000s. Then I went to Superior, that's on the bottom left. And I'm still there. I started there in 2008, and I worked there till present. And I didn't realize how many cool opportunities I would have when I worked there. So we started working at DTE Theater, which is in the upper right. We started working at Palace, which had a ton of events. That's right above the Superior picture. I worked for the Detroit Pistons, the Detroit Lions. We did lots of charity with pancreatic cancer, handlebars for the homeless. We do so much at this company that's so beautiful. Most of it is pro bono, which is nice. But my favorite thing, the best thing that I've learned from there is working with the FBI. I've been one of their medics for quite some time, and everything there is obviously secret for many reasons, and I can't share a lot of my stories. I'm pretty sure that making sure I had to keep all these stories inside, making sure I couldn't tell people what I wanted to or divulge any information changed me a bit. I learned that in my first residency, that the secrecy I had within me, the ability to keep everything quiet, was hurting me at some point in time. I started noticing my detachment from people, from love, and even detachment from empathy. So even though I began this career path at 19, now at 39, well, I have more secrets than I care to have. I started feeling really annoyed with the 911 system earlier this year, 20 years in. I would be so mad to wake up and roll out of bed and have to drive to somebody's house for chest pain, trouble breathing, allergic reactions. It felt like something changed in me. Something. I just couldn't put my finger on it. What an embarrassing thing to admit. A paramedic that didn't want to do her job. EMS has a high turnover rate, higher than most occupations. The American Ambulance Association shows that every 4 years, paramedics have a 100% turnover in an organization staffing. That's absolutely crazy to think about. So if every 4 years there's a complete turnover, how did I make it 20 years? Well, let me tell you something. It comes at a price. I wrote this story. Dr. Andrew Brown encouraged me to kind of let some stuff out. This year, I had an instance where I almost died twice within 4 days. And during my own emergency, I really realized the error of my ways. So I would like to tell you a story, a short one, about my passion for this subject. And pardon me as I read it from the screen. Opening up to complete strangers used to be the easiest thing for me. As most of you know, I'm pretty gregarious. After all, I became a paramedic at the tender age of 19. As an oversharer, I believed I was connected to all people around me, and of course suffered demise from trusting the wrong individuals. I found myself in therapy in my early 30s and began to develop what they call healthy boundaries. Once I was accepted into graduate school, I found that juggling the complexities of my life became more difficult. I'm a single mother of 2 teenage daughters, currently working on my master's degree in mental health counseling and working full-time 2 24-hour shifts as a paramedic. However, while juggling all of my responsibilities, I lost compassion for my current patients. Still embarrassing, by the way, to admit right now. Each day I found myself less able to really connect with my patients and have the compassion needed to do my job with integrity and empathy. As the call would come in for chest pain, trouble breathing, and the like, I found myself rolling my eyes. Oh boy, here we go again. I guess I have to get out of bed. Here we go. I would think, well, physical and mental fatigue was definitely setting in until the universe challenged me, that is. For the first time in my life, I had a major medical emergency. I had an allergic reaction so severe I almost stopped breathing. To be honest, it was not starting. If it was not for me staring into the eyes of my oldest daughter, I believe I truly would have stopped putting forth the effort to breathe. The insurmountable pain and energy it took for me to breathe was unreal. The pain in every inhale and exhale was debilitating. I was wheezing in when I breathe in and out. I guess they call it intrinsic and extrinsically. I had spots clouding my vision. I lost complete peripheral vision. I had this rash everywhere. I was so dizzy. Lost, lack of oxygen to my brain and my lungs. I've never been so scared of or close to dying in my life. Keeping my eyes open was a challenge. And when I was rushed into the trauma bay, it was something different for me. I was always on the opposite side of emergencies. I felt out of control. I needed somebody to breathe for me. I really did want to give up if I wasn't staring right at my daughter. They were giving me medications to offset this allergic anaphylaxis reaction. They stabbed my leg with epinephrine. They started me on a couple IV drips. I know they gave me Benadryl. I just couldn't breathe. so I let them take over. When I did awake, I think it was sometime later, a couple hours later, I saw my daughter crying at the foot of my bed. It was at that time that I realized exactly how precious life is. My life, everyone's life. My daughter didn't act so quickly and get me into that trauma bay, because I couldn't even recognize my own emergency. I may not be here right now to tell you my story. This was my warning, and it came this year. I was 38 years old. An emergency can be declared by anybody, at any time, by anyone. Thank God my daughter declared mine. Our minutes, hours, and days are numbered. This gift of life is not a guarantee. As a medic, I lost compassion towards others suffering in emergency situations. It took this close encounter of death for me to really realize that losing compassion for those in need is not an option. It matters not how many assignments I have that are due and piling up on my desk. The bills, they don't matter. They'll keep coming every single month. The troubles my teens are going through. None of that matters. Not in an emergency. Truly being present takes courage and discipline. I had lost sight of caring for others, and I became overly obsessed with my own struggles. My warning is not just a warning to first responders, medical professionals, but it is a wake-up call for me as a future counselor as well. Maybe even to you out there listening to me. When we become fatigued in any way, we should reach out. Compassion fatigue can rear its ugly head in a million different scenarios, as I showed you earlier. Utley encourages anyone suffering from compassion fatigue to talk to someone and to find a community of social connection. This is why I wanted to share my brief story, encouraging others to share as I have. Sometimes it's embarrassing to admit, but it's what we have to do. It's my hope that some part of this PowerPoint presentation, any part of my words, really pulls at your heartstrings so that you don't have to have a close encounter like I did. I don't know still to this day if I was burnout or compassion fatigue, or maybe even both. And you may be wondering at this time, are they the same? Let me move this. There we go. The definition for compassion fatigue is apathy or indifference towards the suffering of others as a result of overexposure to tragic news, stories, and images, and the subsequent appeals for assistance. Compassion fatigue is exhausting, draining, stress-related, and trauma-related. It's common in all the helping fields and healthcare. It's worse for the sufferer who neglects self-care. The three major signs of compassion fatigue include emotional exhaustion, alienation, and reduced work performance. Burnout's definition is exhaustion of physical or emotional strength, motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration. Burnout is a cumulative process marked by withdrawal, emotional exhaustion, and institutional stress. Burnout is said to be non-trauma related. Therefore, many more individuals are likely to have burnout in an array of different career paths. The stages of burnout are enthusiasm, stagnation, frustration, and finally, apathy. The commonalities between burnout and compassion fatigue include all levels of exhaustion, which are emotional, physical, and mental, decreased interactions with others, all the way up to and including total isolation, reduced sense of personal accomplishments, reduced meaning in work, depersonalization or disconnect from real causes. The worst part of all of this is that we normally take out these negative symptoms on ourselves by not opening up about it, not talking about it, not getting in the self-care that we need, lying to ourselves that we can't eat right. We lean on food. We skip the gym. We might stay in bed longer. This ends up taking a real toll on our bodies, and it's all negative. So how do compassion fatigue and burnout differ? Leanne Hall says the difference is that empathy fatigue is associated with the type of work you do, Well, burnout is associated with where you work. Therefore, you hear a lot more people explaining that they have burnout and maybe needing to get a new job. Where compassion fatigue sets on very rapidly, burnout emerges over time. Compassion fatigue has a faster recovery. Burnout might even make you look for a new job. It takes a long time to get over that. Compassion fatigue and trauma is trauma related. Burnout does not have any trauma relation to it whatsoever. So who's at risk for burnout and compassion fatigue? The short answer to that is everyone. Burnout can happen to anyone. And anybody who has a trauma-related field whatsoever can have compassion fatigue as well. Are some fields more at risk? Well, of course. All helping fields have high risk of developing either compassion fatigue or burnout, maybe even both, depending on their specialty. In a study by Hooper, ER nurses experience almost 86% moderate to high levels of compassion fatigue, and their burnout rate is 82% moderate to high levels. What about my future career? What about therapists, counselors, social workers, and the like? What about us? Well, Figley wrote this statement, and I thought it was beautiful. We have not been directly exposed to the trauma scene, but we hear the story told with such intensity, or we hear similar stories so often, or we have the gift and curse of extreme empathy, and we suffer. We feel the feelings of our clients. We experience their fears. We dream their dreams. Eventually, we lose a certain spark of optimism, humor, and hope. We tire. We aren't sick, but we aren't ourselves. There's some assessments that you can give yourself. They're free. They're online. And they look for compassion fatigue and they look for burnout. They can also compare secondary stress and compassion satisfaction. The top one is 66 questions. The bottom was 30 questions. And it doesn't take anywhere but 10-15 minutes to complete these assessments if you feel like you might be suffering from either, both, all three. So what should I avoid if I think I might be having compassion fatigue or burnout? Well, stop blaming others. Don't fill your void with materialistic things. Don't quit your job unless you have burnout and you're really done with it. Don't work harder. Don't work longer. Try not to self-medicate. Whatever you do, don't neglect yourself or your needs. The things you should do if you think you might be suffering from compassion fatigue and burnout is talk to someone, seek help, set boundaries. Don't be embarrassed. Identify important things in your life. Eat right, exercise, prioritize yourself, sleep well, maybe take some time off and go on a vacation. Develop interests or hobbies outside of work. Also, the best things we can do for ourselves is to relax, go outside, meditate, breathe, take it easy, unplug, enjoy your life, stop and smell some flowers, pet an animal, try and stay positive and smile. Why? Because we can't pour from an empty cup. It's not selfish to care about yourself. It's the responsible thing to do. This is what a lesson all of us will learn in time. So how can that stuff help anyway? Well, practicing self-care boosts endorphins. There are psychological benefits to spending time in nature. It makes you more creative, kinder, and a happier person. Maintaining balance with social support. You're more likely to have a full recovery from trauma through bonding, so social interaction and connection are important. Engaging in hobbies and having this healthy escapes such as music, art, sports, writing, and other creative outlets all combat stress and reduce depression and anxiety. Lastly, remember your purpose. Hope is critical. It will combat compassion fatigue, so sit back and remember what gives your life meaning. Lastly, this little gem from L.R. Knott says, taking care of myself does not mean me first. It means me too. And these are my references.
Terez, let's open it up for questions and dialogue. I think we have plenty of time, so we should maybe talk about other people's experiences and how they've coped with compassion fatigue. So I'll let you kind of lead that, okay?
Absolutely. We have plenty of time. So does anybody want to jump in? Any comments, questions, stories to share?
Terez, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Renee. She had asked a question in the chat. Is there a document somewhere with the definitions for burnout and compassion fatigue?
Yeah, actually, if you at the very bottom right of each of those presentations, I put the APA reference. Also, the APA references are at the bottom of my screen.
And Terez, make sure that Dr. Hudson or I get your presentation if you haven't already, and we'll put it in the advising forum with your recording.
I sent it in on Monday, so if you guys need it, yes, definitely.
We'll be posting it in the advising.
What's that?
It's there, Terez.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so both of the definitions were APA referenced through Webster, Merriam.
Hi, Terez. I have a question.
Fabulous.
I just think it's so important, everything that you shared about compassion fatigue and just the vicarious traumatization that we have as counselors sometimes. And I appreciate, I guess, maybe it's more of a statement. I might get a question out of it for you, I guess. But I found so important our ethical imperative as counselors to our clients that we take care of ourselves, just because of all of the damage that can be done through countertransference in our sessions too. I guess maybe my question would be, what would you recommend an approach in supervision to address compassion fatigue?
Oh, I didn't realize this was off. Hello. I would say that there's stigma around all kinds of mental health and us taking care of ourselves. So kind of taking away that stigma, realizing that we're important too, and seeking the help we deserve and need without feeling embarrassed. We might have compassion fatigue as early as our practicum or our internship, even in our supervision. In Michigan, we need 3,000 hours before we can be on our own. So that gives us plenty of time to actually suffer from these things, and we shouldn't be embarrassed about it. So maybe open dialect with your supervisor and knowing what's best for you. Seeking help if you truly need it is so important. And thank you so much for your question. It's a great one.
I don't really have a question, but I really appreciated you sharing and your story in relation to compassion fatigue. It was really moving and just shows, we need to keep an eye on ourselves sometimes.
I thank you. It's hard to talk about some of that because I didn't grow up in a typical manner, as you can see. I have different experiences that shape me into who I am, and in each of those scenarios, though I didn't go into depth with each one, there was a story that led with me to compassion fatigue, and having open and big hearts like most people in our field do, this is something we really need to be mindful of. And so I wanted to make a presentation, albeit it was short. I still wanted to share my own story and just let everybody know it's okay. And I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed after 20 years of being a paramedic. I was embarrassed to share my story. I was embarrassed that I was annoyed with emergencies. So, and maybe it was 20 years and not like 4 years, like the typical turnaround for a paramedic, but 20 years later, it got me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't want to be embarrassed. So I guess I would say to know what's best for you and seek supervision. I mean, all of the esteemed colleagues here at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology seem like great people to reach out to and maybe get some more resources if ever needed.
Terez, this is Dr. LA. I have a question for you. I mean, as you went through this experience, what would you say were some of the, looking back, what were some of the signs and symptoms that maybe you didn't notice right away, but now looking back, you're like, oh.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't really notice anything, right? Like, I knew I was getting annoyed with my job. I went back to Oakland University in search of a new career in 2008. So I already knew that I was tiring of working 24 hours. I was tiring of being up 24 hours a day, my messed up circadian rhythm, not being able to sleep for 2 days and then crashing for an entire day, not eating when I want to, sleeping when I want to, not being able to do any of my jobs. So I guess I was annoyed with my job. I knew that I couldn't do this forever. That was the very first kind of symptom or sign that I didn't even know was really happening. I just knew I was annoyed with my job, and I just knew I couldn't do it forever. Someone approaching 40 years old, I'm realizing that this job really is for younger kids, all the lifting and all the it's a very physical job, I'll put it that way. All the secrets too, like it was getting to be too much. I lost compassion for people. I started rolling my eyes, like I said, if my pager went off, and now we have iPhones. So if the iPhones went off, I would like roll out of bed and be like, oh, I wish I could get 20 more minutes of sleep. Somebody could be dying. And so that's a pretty big sign looking back that I would roll out kind of annoyed, or we'd be driving there and I'd just be kind of like still wiping the sleepies out of my head and just kind of like, oh, I wish I were sleeping right now. Those things, they wear on your heart. You realize, wow, wow. And then when I finally had this allergic reaction and this epiphany, I was like, oh, wow. Whew. I wouldn't want a paramedic like me, like, geez. When we can roll our eyes and kind of shrug off a chest pain or trouble breathing, what do they think of allergic reactions? So that was kind of something that definitely came to mind. I really needed that as a wake-up call. I needed that to realize that I was in a place where somebody really needs me and I didn't have the empathy to give them. So
and I think
it was
this brings up Madeline's question that she posted in the chat, because you're saying you didn't notice the signs and symptoms, and she's wondering if you saw the compassion fatigue in your coworkers. And so I'm wondering if maybe it's easier to see it in others than yourself.
I would say it is, but most of my coworkers are young babies. So sometimes, well, they are. They're all in their 20s, young men, and they're all green behind the ears. So you look at them and you're like, oh, you Yahoo. And that's the sad part, is it's more of a mirror for myself looking at myself. Like, oh, okay, I'm calling these guys Yahoos because they're excited to do their job, yet I'm the one with the real problem. Mm-hmm. But some of the guys who've been out in the field 20, 30 years, now those guys we can see it in. Those guys we can go, oh, I don't want him treating my family. Not only because he doesn't have compassion whatsoever, he's, oh, another chest pain, oh, another tremor. But because you don't think they can physically do the job. So watching some of my colleagues get to my age or beyond, I'm going, oh, I bet you these young whippersnappers are thinking it's about time I go too. So it's kind of it's an all-around experience. I would say that, yes, I most definitely can notice it in other people, and I didn't realize I was becoming so negative until I really needed somebody else and saw some of the nurses and or physicians kind of rolling their eyes and walking away. That's when I was like, oh, they're just like me. And I can't be like that anymore. So it's an experience, a learning experience, but you can definitely notice in somebody else before I think you notice it in yourself.
Yeah. And it looks like you have another question in the chat.
I guess I should be keeping that open.
No, that's okay. I can help with you. So besides going in to see someone and talking through what you're going through, what other self-care activities helped you?
Well, I love yoga. A lot of people know how very into yoga I am. The stretching, the time that it takes you to do that, the hot room, it's amazing to me. But I also meditate a great deal. I often meditate as I'm going to bed, and I often meditate in the morning. Keeping my mind calm and away from any kind of drama is what really centers myself, and that's something that I need. I'm actually looking into a Buddhist retreat where you can't have any technology for 2 days. You get there on Friday night, and you don't get your stuff back until Sunday night. And it's silent, too. So, you'll walk in, and you might eat, you might fast instead, and you just spend time in nature, and you unplug. So I would say all of that stuff for me is unplugging. It's also seeking exercise, because exercise has a lot to do with it. If you're, upset, angry, this, that, exercise can do a great deal of work in your body as you're punching a punching bag or running. You can sweat out your anger, but I'm not a very angry person. I have anxiety, but I don't have a lot of anger. So yoga seems to work best for me. I also prefer to eat a vegetarian or a vegan diet. I think that this has helped me a lot in my life. And I do artsy stuff. I don't know if you saw my presentation, but it's pretty wild. I like to show that creative side of myself just a little bit. No, but thank you for asking.
Oh, you have another one. Did you have an option to work in the office, maybe in administrative or training or teaching? That may have been a way to alleviate some of the burnout. What do you think, Jennifer?
Oh, I was a manager for about a year, but I still had to work the road. So our management team, it's not an office job. We have billers that are in the office, but they might make $10 an hour or something like that. And then dispatch is an option to stay in an office. Again, you're going to take at least a $10 to $12 pay cut. So as a single mom with a mortgage, those are not options for me. The management job, the middle management, I found myself not liking at all. I only made 50 cents more an hour. I had a lot more responsibilities, and I was tethered to an iPhone that went off every 15 minutes. If you didn't respond within 20 minutes, you could get kicked off of the team. It was a lot more responsibilities than it was worth. So I prefer clocking in and clocking out. I'm doing much better now. I just think I need a little bit of a wake-up call. I don't feel as burnout of my field. I really do enjoy my work a great deal, and especially when I have the opportunities to work with the guys in the FBI, the Detroit Pistons, Detroit Lions. So it's not a monotonous job by any means, which is something my kind of personality needs. Thank you for asking.
So thinking about it from a counselor perspective, I'm wondering, how do you see peer supervision playing into it?
How do I see peer supervision playing
Yeah,
into
like one of our mandates from our code of ethics is that we should have a peer supervision group, that we should connect with a supervision group for, of our peers and have that support system. Do you think that that's something that if you had that in your current role, that would have been helpful?
I really do. Yeah. I'm looking into currently joining this group. It's called Code Green, and it's counselors for paramedics, firefighters, and police officers. And I've been contacting them pretty regularly since I joined my master's degree, because I really hope to work with them. If we had somebody at our job that we thought we could go and talk to, we would probably do that. As paramedics, we really don't have a lot of supervision. We're kind of our own boss, which is it's a blessing and a curse. I love being on my own and not having to answer to anyone. And yet I don't have anyone to talk to if I needed them. So I've been in counseling a lot of my life, in my 30s especially. I think I started at around 28, and then I've gone all the way up until last year. Well, I think it might have been the earlier part of this year. Yeah, I think until April this year. So now I know how to seek help. I know where to get what I need, but they don't offer it at my job. So if they can offer it at the Chicago school, which they do, they offer us, I think it's 3 sessions per problem that we present with. Is that correct, Dr. Ellie?
Yes. Guidance resources is on all the syllabi.
Which is so beautiful, and we don't have anything like that as paramedics, but I can seek that here.
All right, Terez, I'm trying to catch up on the questions.
I know, everything keeps popping up, and I don't have time to read it.
Do you think that those, not even in the profession, just dealing with kids on a daily basis, can experience compassion fatigue for their own children, or have you experienced that?
My children are 18 and 20. They're no longer young. But I would say that compassion fatigue has a trauma component. So you might be looking more at burnout than you would be looking at compassion fatigue in that kind of scenario. I think anybody can experience burnout. Burnout is non-trauma related, and it can take, a long time to get there. But compassion fatigue has that special element of burnout. Of trauma in it. And so unless there's some kind of trauma factor, you're not gonna have compassion fatigue with children.
Okay. That's
maybe
good. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but what field or concentration is your ultimate goal? Would it still be trauma?
Yes, traumatology. I love traumatology. Of course, there are aspects and folks that I would love to work with in the LGBTQ community, as I have been an ally for a long, long time, actually looking at a great tattoo currently so that I can publicly display my love for all people. But traumatology would be the big one. This is the one I most connect with, and I have so much experience in. Thank you for asking.
Giovanni, did you have a question? I couldn't find it if you did.
No, she answered it.
Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure you weren't missed. All right. Has anybody else posted a question that I didn't catch? Oh, having learned what you have firsthand, what advice would you offer if we start to see signs of fatigue, burnout in people in our everyday lives? How can we carefully crack up the conversation and ease the uneasiness of a tough subject? Crack open was what she meant. Okay, that was Allison.
Oh, hi, Allison. I would say do it with gentle ease and in class, of course. It depends on how well you know the person. I would expect Dr. LA, Dr. Foster, Dr. Crowley to come at me and be like, hey, little shit, you're doing things. You know what I mean? That's how I'd want them to talk to me. But you have to really know the person. So I respond better to a very direct manner, while most people kind of need that candy coating. So to be safe, somebody can candy coat some stuff with me. I'm not going to look at it differently, but I definitely know the people who love me come at me straight and punch me in the gut. That's how I prefer communication, but that is not normal. So I would say to do it in a more gentle way. I would say, hey, how you doing lately? Can we go for a cup of coffee? Can we go for a glass of wine? If you're that close to them, right? And you could have a conversation about it. Hey, I'm really worried about you. I'm seeing you kind of alienate yourself. I'm seeing you not really enjoy your job as much. Why don't we go for a vacation? Why don't we take a day off? Why don't we go do a girl thing? Go get nails or something. If it's somebody you don't really know, just letting them know you care, I think, is kind of sweet. I tend to be one of those people who always pay it forward. So if I notice that person was always drinking Tim Hortons, I might bring them a Tim Hortons cup. Likewise, if they were a Starbucks person like me, I would do that maybe. I'd bring them a coffee and tell them that, I'd really like to talk to them sometime. But I would come in slow and easy, and I would take my time, and I would be gentle about it. Unless it was somebody I knew, and then I would expect differently, like I said. So it really depends on the case, the scenario. But in most scenarios, I would come in easy and gentle before I open up such a very big topic where they might likely not open up to you.
Good deal. All right. Let's see. So essentially you're saying speak the language of the relationship.
Speak the language of the relationship. I don't know where you are with the person.
Yep. That's a great, Dr. TRW said that. That's great.
Yeah, it's always like a know your role or know your audience kind of a thing that I learned that back in Oakland University. Know your audience, speak to them, because that's, who you have to speak to. Sometimes I was teaching medical microbiology class. Well, all of them want to be physicians. So you speak to them in a different way than you would speak to a general biology class, where half the people are there only because it's something they need to graduate. So really know your role, know your audience, and go for them.
That's a great suggestion, Terez. So, Terez, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I'm just curious about your experience of doing this presentation, because you have a lot of people here that maybe haven't submitted a proposal or done a presentation. Kind of what was this experience like, and what advice would you give to others?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This experience for me is beautiful and wonderful. It lets me put out all of my creative juices into one spot, and I'm allowed to talk about my passion. So in these courses, we often find we are doing topics that we are made to do, right? Well, this gives you all creative freedom. You get to open up and splurge out. So my experience was beautiful. It's a beautiful hot mess. It wasn't long enough. I'm in this class called assessments. If you don't know about that, you'll learn. So I wasn't able to pour all of my heart and soul out and give you everything of every single instance, and why I brought up that big collage of pictures, because every single one of those has a very special story to me. I wanted to elaborate and I didn't. and I didn't because my course is extremely difficult. So my experience was beautiful and wonderful. I wish I could have elaborated more. I don't think 26 slides is enough. I would go more for 30, 40 if I was looking at doing an entire hour, and I knew that my presentation was running about 30 minutes, which is exactly what it did today. So maybe more slides, more stories, make it personal, definitely make it your creative ability and something you're passionate about, because it's difficult to write about things that you don't have a fire for. So going forward, my advice to anybody who would like to do this is just pour your heart and soul out there. Get started early. Know what you're into, and then you can speak from the heart and from real experience. And that is the best way to teach anybody any lesson, because it's beautiful when you get to know somebody truly from their inside. So compassion fatigue, burnout, these are things that I've been dealing with and looking at for many, many years. And I really wanted to share my humble story with all of you. So if you're going to do this, make sure it comes from your heart. Make sure it's a fire and a passion that lives within inside of you. And then definitely try to get it closer to 45 minutes so you don't have a half an hour of questions.
Yeah. I'm curious, passion project for field work. Are you thinking around this topic or what?
I am writing a class right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the class is on Braving by Breanne Brown,
Oh.
her TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like the first chapter completely done. And although I might try to fit some of this stuff in it, my passion project definitely needs to include this because it means so much to me. But right now I'm just completing the chapters of that first book.
Yeah.
But I think you're onto something. I should probably definitely add this in because I do. It's a fire in me. It's a fire in me that I have to share with others and spread with others and kind of ignite this passion and let everybody know exactly what's been going on in my life for so long, because I have not had a typical or normal upbringing like whatsoever.
But even you could do something, around like just creating a space for people in your field, your current field, to have a safe space where they can unload some of those secrets.
Yeah, definitely. You're not wrong. I've been looking into Code Green for a long time. What I would love to do is work in the Detroit area, which is where I've been for 20 years, and I know many faces. I want to work with Code Green in my area, and I want to be that person for other people to talk to. I want to be there for them, knowing that we don't have anywhere to go to, knowing that things aren't really in space for us to talk. And even if they were, sometimes we're just held to secrecy no matter what. I'm not allowed to divulge any information about any of my FBI things ever. And you just have to know that. So if you have a counselor that's in the room with you who knows that you can't divulge everything, it's going to be helpful for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'm trying really hard to be that person. Of course, I could try to seek help for everybody, including me, but I'm really trying to be that person in my area.
I love the statement you made about we cannot pour from an empty cup. I love that statement.
Yeah. It's something I need to learn because I try to give my all to everyone around me. I've learned some tough lessons this year, like how to caregive and not caretake and things like that. So,
Terez, I'm not sure if you answered this question, but I figured I'd read it. Jennifer asked, what is the best way to connect if you are an online student? What is the best way to form relationships?
Yeah, my class is super connected. I don't know where you're at in your education, Jennifer, but we tend to get closer through residency 1 and even closer yet through the residency 2. So I would reach out. A lot of us became really tight in the first year, but that's once we got to Res 2 a year and a half into our program, we were unbreakable. We actually text each other all the time. We travel together. We will show up on Blue Jeans and have dinner or wine together. So if you're just starting and you need some connections, I'd just kind of reach out to someone and see if you can meet with somebody in your cohort who's going to be there for you the entire time and been through those processes, because the residency 1 process opens up a certain level inside of you, but residency 2 will do it on another level, as you'll see. So connecting with your cohort would be great. Find somebody who's like-minded, read their posts, shoot out an email, find people who are closer to you. Maybe somebody lives in your state. That's not always the case with, somebody up here with me. But, and reach out, and don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing that could happen is you're just like, hey, I don't have a lot of time. Like, no big deal.
I'd also say, Anastasia, did you want to mention the organization that you're highly involved in?
Sure. I wasn't expecting. So I am on the activities committee with Theta Chi Sigma. I think they changed. Did you guys change?
Oh, Theta Chi Sigma, you're right.
Okay. I'm on the activities committee with Ash. I believe she's on here, and JJ, and we have a wonderful opportunity for students that are eligible to join, and we have monthly meetings, and you can also be on the committee. I believe we have a finance position open within the committee, and we also have other committee spots as well. And I believe we have sent out an email. Maybe it would be a good idea to send out an email after these 2 days of conferences. Yes, and it is a great thing we have speakers at every meeting, whether they're from the Chicago School or from external speakers. That's one of the jobs that JJ, Ash, and I kind of formulate what speakers we will be getting, and the members get to choose the topics that we talk about. So, for instance, if 1 month you wanted to learn or get more information about play therapy, you would just, I believe we're doing a doc. I don't remember the name of the doc, but we're having that set up for options for topics. Did anyone have any questions about Theta Chi Sigma?
Yeah, we're going to be sending out a Survey Monkey link that's going to
there
ask
you go.
topic ideas. Yep. All right. And you can always watch the advising forum. They post announcements when the meetings will be. They're always on Mondays for now. All right. I think we're going to be switching over to Terez. You did an outstanding job. Well done. Thank you. And let's see. Anastasia, are you running the next one too?
No.
Dr. Stretch, I'll be here. I'll help Dr. Stour and Kimberly
Awesome.
and Sherry. Yeah, I'll help them.
So one thing, we need to stop the recording and restart the recording.
Okay, that sounds good. I just want to remind everyone that you will get a link for an evaluation for all the presentations. And for those of you in attendance, if you would please go in and do the evaluation to help out your peers so that they can grow in this process of presenting at conferences. And hopefully we can have more of you present next year. So thank you all for attending. Thank you, Terez. You did wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed your
Thank you.
company and your questions, and I love the opportunity to grow.